In today's video, we're going to be going over 10 advanced tips you'll need to go even deeper into the mines of Moria. I'm your boy Winter Phoenix, and if you like this video or it's helped you in any way, drop a like and let me know you guys want more. Now, without further ado, we are starting things off with some heat. We're in the kitchen. Feel the heat! Because exploring the mines of Moria can be tough, and we don't always want to have to run back to base if a fight goes a little out of hand. Before, you just had access to the hearth and had to eat at home. But once you unlock the oven and or the roasting pit, oh boy, times have changed. Slap one of these babies down and life just got 10 times easier. These allow you to cook higher grade meals and bring snacks on the road to provide various buffs, including instant healing. The roasting pit will allow you to make meals that provide stronger and longer lasting buffs. They also sound delicious IRL. Deep hash. It is eggs and mushrooms.
Get hungry. like in real life.
That made you hungry?
Yeah.
The oven will allow you to make food for the dwarf on the go, and you guessed it, that's us. Anything that comes out of here is ready to go into your hotbar and provide a quick pick-me-up should you get swarmed while out exploring. The roasting pit is unlocked a little deeper into your adventures, but it will allow you to cook meals that will give you the well-fed buff and that last longer than the buffs provided by the hearth. The oven becomes available shortly after entering the elven quarters. Grab yourself some copper, coal, stone, and wood scraps to open the sweet gates to healing and prosperity. Excuse me. Begin stockpiling those health pots in layman's. The Rune Table. It is the gateway drug to becoming overpowered and cutting through mobs like hot butter. It's how you get from butt clenching to butt kicking. Runes have a variety of abilities that help you with farming resources and outputting damage. I recommend you try all the runes as you unlock them, but my personal favorite is the lightning rune. It gives you a lightning damage amplifier, and has the added benefit of increased attack speed. And as we all know, faster attack speed equals more potential damage output. But again, runes don't only give you damage buffs, but some even allow you to farm more rare resources recently unavailable to you, i.e. ironwood, a type of wood resource you'll need to go into late game territory. The Rune Table is unlocked by first repairing a table you find out in the mines that is already broken down. You can do this fairly early in the beginning of your adventures. To do this, you'll need 1 steel ingot and 15 elven wood. Once done, the recipe to craft a rune table will unlock, and that will allow you to build one in your future bases. Hopefully you watched my previous video so you know where to establish said base, so then you can then build said rune table. Rolling right along, it's time we talked about the roll. To some, the roll is simply that, a roll. But to the more keen of eye, we see it as something more. The roll is often a fun mechanic in survival games because they never seem to get it right, and Return to Moria is no different. The roll or dodge is a two-part beauty. On one hand, she has the grace and fluidity of iframes, and on the other, she has the smarts and ingenuity of defying the laws of physics. The roll is useful in almost any scenario the game has to throw at you. If you are a slash first, ask questions later kind of player, then you may not use a shield, or if you use a two-handed weapon like a polearm or a crossbow, the shield isn't even an option for you at all. In comes the roll. At any time you feel threatened, stop, drop, and roll those problems away, baby. The roll has invincibility frames at the startup of a roll and all the way through to the end, which is a pretty big window considering dwarves don't roll very well. And that is the beauty in the roll. The ingenuity comes in when you're in the air. That's right, in the air. While attempting a decent jump, use the roll at the peak of your jump to maximize the effect of this technique. Instead of abiding the laws of physics and following the typical trajectory of a simple jumping dwarven man, you will perform a combat roll, mid-air, and then begin your descent. Not to mention, rolling brings with it momentum and carries through on your descent. Bear that last tip in mind when using this. No! This next tip is for all you green thumbs out there. Want to grow your own crops for all those delicious meals? Then you'll want to listen up. There aren't many meat options in the game, but you can grow an array of different crops, from common mushrooms to the ever so important Kazdul oat. But it's not as simple as slapping down a crop plot and starting your own garden. You'll have to plan ahead, as some crops require light and some require darkness. Quick rule of thumb is mushroom families need darkness, everything else requires light. This is achievable in the deepest parts of the mines, and I'll show you how. First, I would recommend you build the planters over the crop plots because simply space. The crop plots hold one type of seed and take up half the space a planter does. The planter actually allows you to plant 3 types of seeds at double the space of 1 crop plot. So in a space of 2 crop plots, you can harvest 3 plots with a planter instead. Man, that was tough to say. Secondly, pay attention to where you place your planter. If it's for mushrooms, look to build your planters in the dark. You'll know you've got it when the icon above the plot turns from a sun to a crescent moon. The same is true when planning to plant crops that need sunlight. You can do this by building planters under the giant diamond-like rocks that are not mineable but instead somehow solar powered. However it works, it provides enough light to grow cabbages and oats underground. Now that you've got your farm all set up, let's talk about what to do with some of it with our next tip. Beer. Lots of beer. A driving force behind any dwarf is his access to beer. Without it, you are slow and unmotivated. But with it, the world is your oyster. At first glance, I know the beer demands a bit more resources than you'd expect, but it's well worth it. Each brew makes 80 servings. Have a mug at the house or grab a flask and take your warm and fuzzies on the road with you. If anything, at least have a nightcap of the dwarf's specialty evening brew. You'll be sure to wake up feeling refreshed and even have a special buff. Before we get into the next tip, I would like to talk about something on a more serious note. My subscriber count. Lots of you have stopped by and enjoyed my content, and some of you even left the oh so coveted like and comment. But you're all forgetting one last step. A sub a day keeps depression away. Support a local content creator near you. Me. I'm near you. Hey, what are you doing? Don't go back and sub to the other guy. What are you doing? Halfway through, and we got a fun one next. This one is more for those people who enjoy a more streamlined and efficient experience. While I understand a lot of us play solo, this tip also helps with those who have a party. Build a mapstone and hearth at the beginning of the game. This one I learned the hard way when my base was raided and I lost my bed. The game will spawn you back at the beginning when you first fell through into the mines, leaving you the task of running back to your base and your gear. Instead, you can now just tell you there and gear up for the retrieval of your best gear. If you're like me, that is. But also, this helps if you have a friend join your world later, or maybe you find a really cool YouTuber looking to tour your base and feature it in an upcoming base video. I don't know. But what I do know is you'll no longer have to make that embarrassing run home again. This tip is for all those hoarders or power farmers. Fair warning, you're not going to like this first part. Every survival game has its unique quirkiness to it, but all of them have one thing in common: building. And in order to get really deep and make some impressive builds, you're going to need lots of resources. You might think you'll just go farm it all up and wait for it to respawn, but that's where you would be wrong. Some resources actually don't spawn back after they've already been harvested, like elven wood. But there is a workaround for this. Back out of your current world and go back to the main menu. Then select your dwarf and load up a brand new world. Don't worry, we're not starting over, but maybe abusing a mechanic or two. In Return to Moria, you can bring your dwarf anywhere you want, even to another server or world, but you get to keep all your items. That means anything you bring in and take out. So when you can't seem to find those resources you want, or need to farm faster, use this trick to keep the resources flowing in. We mentioned that bit of quirkiness earlier, so I think it's time we cover that too. In hindsight, a lot of it is pretty obvious, but I'm not the brightest crayon in the tool shed. The quarter circles you see to the far left are actually your dwarves' light meters. The further to the right the arrow is, the more light you're in. However, the farther to the left you go, the more you'll start to suffer from despair. That fun mechanic they added to make mining fun? It's basically a game about a job that got a lot of people killed in the boom of mining. You try to make that into a fun mechanic, come on. But that doesn't mean the second you cross over to the left, you're screwed. Right underneath those light meters is your morale bar. This will start to drain when you enter the dark and continue to drain until you get to a light source. Let it drain all the way and now you've entered a state of despair, and it'll kill you, so be mindful. On top, we have our buffs in green text and debuffs in red. When they are active, hit the tab key to see what they actually do. The 3 blue, red, and yellow bars are as follows. The blue bar is a representation of your overall remaining armor. When it's blue, you'll take blue damage until your armor is broken or depleted. The red bar is your health, so I shouldn't have to tell you what happens if that runs out. And the yellow bar is your hunger bar. When it depletes, you start to take starvation damage, which is essentially the same damage as being despaired, just for your tummy. This next tip I actually figured out playing on one of your servers. That's right, I hooked up with one of my subs. I'm gonna slap a bedroll right over here.
There's the 2 bedrolls are over here, so if you want to slap them right next to these here.
I'll sleep at the feet like a little doggy.
Tickling our toes as we sleep.
Keep the team morale up. And mine some ore.
I might have put that too high.
10-foot dwarf? What else you are, man? killed some orcs. Okay. This gave me the overhand of my life. That was rude. God. Just straight up bonked me on my little dwarven head. And raised pints together in harmonic brotherhood. But I also learned about ranger notes. These little rolled up pieces of parchment are actually recipes left by the last rangers to pass through. I won't question why their last diary entries were kettling instructions, but it's a great benefit to us now. Every time you find a ranger's camp, look around for the diary. Return the pages to it, and you'll learn a new recipe for your bar back home. The pages are scattered around in the zone you find the camp in. And before you ask, no, the pages cannot be used in any diary. If I tore a page out of Sydney's diary and added it to Jamie's diary, would it make sense? No. So, come on, you silly. For our last and final tip, we got the Mastercraft Items. Each one has a very powerful effect and are all well worth the effort to make. They have a dedicated slot on your hotbar at the 0 key, and you can only carry one Mastercraft item at a time, for balancing purposes I would imagine. And for those of you out there who play with friends, I recommend you split up the items. One carry the shield, while one with the keg, and then lastly the torch. Now that you know how to manage the despair bar, light isn't that much of a problem anymore, and probably sits on the bottom of the tier list for the Mastercraft items, for me, personally. That's all I got for now. Like and subscribe. Peace!